Unit 731, Japan's secret biological warfare program in World War II. From conventional battles to kamikaze attacks, Japan's actions in World War II took many forms, but perhaps none were as clandestine and horrifying as the activities of Unit 731. Officially titled the Epidemic Prevention and Water Purification Department of the Kwantung Army, Unit 731 was a covert research facility that pursued biological and chemical warfare under the leadership of General Shiro Ishii. Established in the puppet state of Manchukuo, in northeast China, this installation operated with near-total secrecy throughout the 1930s and into World War II. While ordinary Japanese soldiers fought on the front lines, scientists and medics at Unit 731 subjected prisoners, both Chinese civilians and Allied POWs, to barbaric experiments. The goal: develop potent biological agents and study the limits of human endurance. For decades after the war, Unit 731's atrocities remained shrouded in denials and classified documents, only slowly coming to light through survivor testimonies and uncovering of evidence. Unit 731's origins trace back to the Imperial Japanese Army's desire to gain an edge in modern warfare. After observing chemical weapon use in World War I, leaders like Ishii believed that advanced biological agents, plague, cholera, anthrax, could provide a devastating strategic advantage. Manchukuo offered the perfect testing ground, far from prying eyes and under tight military control. Construction began in the early 1930s, with Ishii receiving generous funding. Researchers erected massive facilities fitted with labs, autopsy rooms, incinerators, and cells designed for live human subjects. The staff called their captives logs, or maruta, a cruel euphemism intended to dehumanize those they tortured. Some were political dissidents or captured guerrillas, others were simply unlucky civilians caught in anti-bandit sweeps. Regardless of background, they all became unwilling participants in horrific experiments. Among the documented atrocities, Unit 731 subjected prisoners to germ injections, plague, typhoid, anthrax, tuberculosis, to gauge infection rates, symptom progressions, and mortality timelines. Victims screamed in agony as the diseases ravaged their bodies, all meticulously observed by doctors who recorded data on clipboards. In some cases, the infected were vivisected, cut open while still alive, without anesthetic, to examine internal organs for real-time pathological changes. Other experiments involved forced hypothermia. Guards dunked prisoners' limbs in sub-zero water to measure frostbite thresholds, then shattered the frozen extremities to chart break patterns. Meanwhile, aerial delivery tests used bombs laced with pathogens dropped over Chinese villages, aiming to assess how quickly plague or cholera might spread through a population. This brazen campaign of human experimentation was kept top secret. Japanese medical journals rarely hinted at such research, and any references to novel breakthroughs were couched in code words. Local authorities lived in terror, aware that Unit 731 acted above law, shielded by the Kwantung Army's top brass. Some staff members insisted they were contributing to legitimate medical science. Others reveled in the power. Personal accounts reveal callous jokes about dismembering, logs, and casual talk of daily executions. Most staff rationalized their work as essential to defeating China or potential Western foes, fully immersed in the ultra-nationalist mindset that justified cruelty for the emperor's cause. Meanwhile, the local Chinese populace faced an unspoken nightmare, with rumors of black uniformed men and trucks ferrying victims in and out of the compound at odd hours. As World War II escalated, Unit 731 ramped up production of biological weapons. They developed ceramic bombs intended to disperse plague-infested fleas, tested on Chinese villages. Some pilot studies unleashed lethal outbreaks, though unpredictable weather and limited scope kept these from becoming large-scale disasters. Additionally, the unit researched chemical agents such as mustard gas and experimented with antidotes. By 1945, with Japan on the verge of defeat, top officials ordered the destruction of evidence, incinerating files, demolishing parts of the facility, and executing remaining test subjects. Personnel fled or donned civilian disguises. General Ishii allegedly instructed subordinates to take the secret to the grave. This final act nearly erased the proof of one of WWII's darkest undertakings. After Japan's surrender, American occupation authorities in post-war Japan discovered traces of Unit 731's existence. Realizing the potential intelligence value of Ishii's data on biological warfare, the US granted immunity to key figures in exchange for their research findings. Ishii and his team avoided prosecution at the Tokyo trials, unlike many other Japanese officers convicted of war crimes. This immunity caused outrage among former Allied POWs and Chinese survivors, who saw it as a travesty of justice. American intelligence rationalized the decision by arguing that the data might help the US accelerate its own understanding of germ warfare in the brewing Cold War climate. As a result, official records remained classified for years, and many Unit 731 veterans quietly reintegrated into Japan's medical and academic institutions. It wasn't until the 1980s and 1990s that surviving victims, journalists, and historians forced the topic into public discourse. Testimony from former workers at Unit 731 began to surface, often contradictory, some insisting they only handled routine tests on animals, others admitting to grotesque human trials. Chinese eyewitnesses recounted entire villages suffering outbreaks of plague or bizarre new diseases after low-flying planes released unknown substances. Lawsuits filed in Japanese courts demanded apologies and compensation, though rulings varied. The Japanese government, for its part, avoided a direct admission of state-sponsored biological warfare, though some prime ministers have acknowledged the suffering inflicted in China. Today, a small museum in Harden, near the site of Unit 731, stands as a grim memorial that confronts visitors with photographs, relics, and survivor stories describing unparalleled cruelty. For many historians, Unit 731 is a symbol of how total war and extreme ideology can corrupt even the medical profession, twisting doctors and researchers into orchestrators of lethal experiments. Unlike the widely publicized Nazi experiments at concentration camps, Unit 731's atrocities lingered in obscurity for decades, partly due to the American intelligence deal. The event raises difficult moral questions. If the data gleaned from lethal tests hold scientific value, is it ethical to use it? This debate parallels questions about Nazi medical findings and unsettles those who believe no knowledge is worth torture's price. Above all, Unit 731 offers a haunting lesson about unchecked militarism, racism, and a culture that sees enemy populations as expendable test subjects. Unit 731 also shattered the notion that atrocities are confined to the battlefield alone. Here, the front line was a laboratory, where captive humans were reduced to living specimens. The lethal results underscore how warfare extends beyond bullets and bombs, infecting scientific pursuits when states prioritize victory over basic human rights. Though overshadowed by atomic bombings, kamikaze tactics, and conventional battles, the legacy of Unit 731 remains a crucial piece of understanding Japan's World War II conduct. It stands as one of the starkest examples of how a modern, industrialized nation can foster barbarism under the banner of research and strategic innovation. Even today, tensions persist between Japan and China over the memory of these events. Chinese communities demand further acknowledgement, reparation, and transparency. Some survivors and families still grapple with illnesses that might trace back to those biological tests. Japanese textbooks historically offered minimal coverage of Unit 731, a gap that activists strive to correct. Younger generations, both in Japan and China, encounter different interpretations of what happened in Manchukuo's hinterlands. Meanwhile, the global community references Unit 731 in discussions about banning biological weapons, ensuring that such horrors are never repeated. In the end, Unit 731 stands among the most unsettling chapters of World War II, revealing an unseen side of conflict where science becomes an instrument of death. Understanding this story means grappling with moral anguish and re-examining how we define progress, innovation, and medical ethics. Like the aftermath of the Holocaust, which forced the world to adopt new human rights frameworks, revelations about Unit 731 pushed debates on war crimes to new frontiers. Yet the final verdict remains murky. Immunity deals shielded key perpetrators, leaving survivors bereft of full justice. Still, by learning about Unit 731, we reaffirm the imperative that warfare must never override our shared humanity, that no war goal justifies a descent into inhuman experimentation. Subscribe to Legends of the Battlefield for more stories of brilliant tactics and legendary leaders.